Hello, everyone. In between working on some bigger projects, I wanted to just do a short reading. This here is my copy of the Encyclopedia of Supervillains by Jeff Rovin. Ignore the cover I put on there. That was just for something else. My copy of this book and its companion piece, the Encyclopedia of Superheroes, unfortunately did not come with covers. The trades I got of them a few years back, but the original versions do have some really pretty covers. This book means a lot to me. Both of these books mean a lot to me. I discovered them in seventh grade, and they really mean the world to me. There's a lot that these books have done and really influenced me into who I am today, much like Cuphead did. And I really just wanted to read the introduction by Rovin because I find it honestly really, really fascinating to read the whole thing. So that's all I'm really going to do for this. Insanus omnis furor credit ceteros. Every madman thinks everyone else is mad. Cyrus in Maximus. In the motion picture Superman 2, the superpowered General Zod escapes from his Phantom Zone prison and sets himself up as the tyrannical ruler of Earth. Eventually, Superman is able to defeat him, but not before people are slain, cities are razed, and a president is forced to kneel before the Tsar from Krypton. He was a monster, says actor Terrence Stamp, who played Zod, but thought we all cheered for Superman. The truth is that if we had superhuman powers, most of us would most likely be doing what Zod is doing and not what Superman is doing. Most of us wouldn't be upholding laws. We'd be running the world according to our own rules. Psychologist Bruno Bettelheim agrees. In The Uses of Enchantment, he writes, "Who would not like to have the power to satisfy all his desires and to punish his enemies? And who does not fear such powers if some other possesses them?" Superheroism requires an extreme degree of self-sacrifice and denial. Being a superhero means controlling one's base, carnivorous instincts. It means turning the other cheek, no matter how disgusted one gets. It means striving to protect others, even those who have wronged the superhero. Supervillainy is just the opposite. It permits self-indulgence in the extreme, the seeking of vengeance or gain with complete disregard for the rights and well-beings of others. The fact that there are often dozens of superheroes for each and every superhero indicates just how tempting this is, how easy it is to be corrupted rather than grow saintly, how natural it is to be like Zod. Even if the average person is not of a mind to conquer the world, every day we find a valid reason for lashing out at that world. A driver cuts us off on the road. We're treated unfairly at the workplace. Something we just bought breaks down. Our first thoughts are not to rehabilitate or forgive the perpetrator. Our initial reaction is to swear, to chastise, to kick, perhaps even to destroy, if we had superpowers and were beyond retribution. That isn't to say that we're evil because we get angry. After all, we're human. But if we had super strength, or a ray gun, or a voodoo doll, if we felt we could get away with revenge, violence would probably erupt. For most fictional characters, acquiring superpowers causes just that. It magnifies latent or mild megalomania, misanthropy, and madness. These obsessions tend to grow more intense as time goes on. Paranoia sets in, enemies are perceived as being everywhere, fortifications rise, weapons are collected, and before you know it, a Darth Vader or Doctor Doom has been born. How thoroughly does this evolution affect the brain? Consider. Unlike the supervillain doesn't sneak back into a civilian identity, become a Clark Kent or Bruce Wayne at the end of the day. The Joker remains the Joker. The Phantom of the Opera is always the Phantom of the Opera, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. They are satisfied, utterly, with this identity. Which isn't to say that supervillains are true obsessive compulsives, people who reach a point where they derive no pleasure from their actions other than to release tension. supervillains enjoy making other people suffer, as witness this classic exchange between Superman and Lex Luthor from the film Superman. Is that how a warped brain like yours gets its kicks? By planning the death of innocent people? No, by causing the death of innocent people. Supervillains have their roots in the dawn of civilization, when they were created to make ethical statements or simply to create conflict and drama. In ancient Egypt, Set, the god of darkness, cut the body of the benevolent sun god Osiris into 14 pieces and scattered them across the land. The Babylonians feared the awful goddess Tiamat, who, with her pet dragons, represented the destructive power of the ocean, while the Persians weren't too fond of Drun, the spirit of evil, who was served by an army of demons. These religious figures, and others like them, were the forerunners of the witches, ogres, and trolls, which menaced heroes in fairy tales, and the wizards and high-tech antagonists, which later appeared in fantasy and science fiction novels, comic books, motion pictures, television, and the like. The supervillains which appear in this encyclopedia were culled for this and other sources, each source indicated by letters in parentheses besides the heading of each entry. A. Advertisements. C. Comic books. CS. Comic strips. F. Folklore. M. Magazines. MP. Motion pictures. MY. Mythology. N. Novel/short story. P. Poetry. R. Radio. RE. Religion. S. Stage, including opera. T. Toys. And TV. Television. The range is broad. Satan rubs shoulders with the likes of the bunny from beyond, but evil takes many forms. Even a hair with absolute power can be corrupted absolutely. Who qualifies? That's subjective to some degree, though there are common attributes among all the figures in this encyclopedia. Like the superhero, the supervillain is a figure whose ambitions and abilities, whether from mutation, wizardry, or even an incredible weapon or two, surpass those of ordinary villains. Thus, while the likes of Fagin, Lady Macbeth, and Boris Badenov, of Rocky and Bullwinkle fame, are certainly ne'er-do-wells, they lack the technology, the sixth sense, the extra dimension that would make them supervillains. Which is not to rule out the exceptions that meet only one of the criteria. Auric Goldfinger isn't markedly more super than Badenov, but the scope of his plan to kill off an entire city and loot Fort Knox is dastardly enough to merit him a place in the Rogues Gallery. Sometimes sheer criminal audacity is sufficient to offset the lack of a gadget or superpower. On the other hand, apparent criminal can be misleading. For example, the monstrous flies wielding swords in the pictured issue of Porky Pig would certainly seem to qualify as supervillainous. Porky and Sylvester steal into the insects' homeland intending to destroy them, but as the story reveals, the monstrous Mucidae are merely defending themselves. Eventually, Porky and Sylvester realize their error and leave, astride a horsefly, naturally. Another problem area is monsters. As a rule, huge and/or clearly non-humanoid evildoers have not been included in the text. While creatures like Godzilla and the Frankenstein monster are destructive, they are not greedy or totalitarian or simply sadistic in the same way as Captain Hook or Medea. Also, a number of supervillains cataloged in the text ultimately reformed, most notably Darth Vader. They have been included just the same since, their ultimate redemption notwithstanding, the body of their criminal work is simply awesome. Each entry in the encyclopedia is divided into a variety of subheadings. Like a wanted poster, this lets you know quickly and concisely just who the enemy is. In those cases where information was inapplicable or unavailable, the subheading has not been included. Categories are as follows. Real name. If known or provided in the original chronicles, the supervillain's identity before he, she, they, it gave up any semblance of law-abiding normalcy. First appearance. the medium and date of the character's first appearance. Note that some magazines, such as the Mighty Crusaders and Superman, had 2 different runs. These are differentiated by notations of first or second series. Costume. The Fiend's distinctive garb. A bodysuit/shirt is tight and form-fitting, while a jumpsuit is not. A t-shirt is simply a body shirt without the sleeves. A caplet is a small cape, reaching no further than the mid-back. Weapons. The implements, gadgets, conveyances, and arms used by the supervillain. Chief Henchmen. The lawbreakers, aides, and flunkies, human and monster alike, listed by name wherever possible. Biography. The often tragic story of the supervillain's life, including how she, he, they, it became a criminal and a few of the major crimes. Quote, a typical threat, maclidation, quip, or famous last words, straight from the villain's mouth. Comment. Any additional information, including cross-references to supervillains with similar powers or motivation. Note that beside the heading of several entries are numbers. Supervillains not only conquer, murder, and extort, but sometimes they steal one another's names. If more than one supervillain has the same name, such as the Scorpion, their entries are numbered according to who used it first. 2 supervillains frequently crop up in the entries of other supervillains. If a villain's name appears this way in capital letters, it means he or she has their own entry. If you're interested in finding out which villains shared the same superhero enemies, please refer to the hero's name in the index. Indeed, you can often tell a great deal about people from the company they keep. It's interesting to note that superheroes often attract certain kinds of supervillains. Foes of the Batman tend to be psychotic, adversaries of Dick Tracy are often physically deformed, and Superman's greatest enemies seem to enjoy goading him on more than the thrill to criminality for its own sake. Freudians will find this revealing, not only in analyzing the characters, but also in understanding the dark side of the creator's imaginations as well. The truth is, supervillains also teach us about ourselves. We may admire the hubris of the supervillain, identify with their frustrations, and, as actor Stamp suggests, find their freedom alluring. The bottom line is that in life, as well as art, herodom is a chronicle of successes, while villaindom is a catalog of failures. Milton unwittingly provided the call to arms for most supervillains when he wrote, "Better to reign in hell than serve in heaven." However, it was Underdog who provided the capper, summing up what the woeful saga of every supervillain in this book underscores: crime doesn't pay.